Thank you.
So what's he is going into his senior year at college. He was. So he jumped out. Well, no, he was 2015. And so he should have been done this year, but he sat out. Okay. He transferred to a small one. I want to stop someone. Sat out again.
Jake, what do you want the Facebook feed? Then I need some type of internet with this.
So he's a Swiss major and transferred to Boston. Just thought he was in the same year.
I mean, you can turn your phone on as a hotspot. What are your things?
And Abigail is a freshman at Arizona State. Wisconsin. We still have our house in Louisiana. God was so striking. Eric, how you doing? Oh yeah. Great, man. Well, a lot of things that you do about it. That big. How are you doing? How's your dad? You still doing pictures?
It's not. Okay. So, I guess. Try it one more time. If it doesn't work, just you can set it down. Yeah, this thing will work.
Never mind. Beat me to it. So yeah, just I have to just I'll bring. I got a whole intro. I got to read through. And I'll bring it through. Bring you. Walk out and over there. It's right there. It's fine. Yeah, you don't have to. Do it. Right. So. I've got a share check mark open here. So you can share. I do, Coach.
A date for the rest of your lives.
There's a great promise for all of you.
The Pro Football Hall of Fame and Extreme Networks present the Heart of a Hall of Famer program. With nearly 100 Hall of Famers participating, we have reached 48 states around this country, sharing the message that football is more than a game and can teach Americans how to huddle up during a time when we need to be united.
It's time for America to take a real deep dive. Not at no one else, but at yourself individually. If you want to change America, don't brush your teeth with your head down. Look at who you are and be the example. Be the example.
An opportunity to meet and learn from one of the greatest football players of all time. But more than that, the chance to see that their Hall of Fame life wasn't given to them. Single-parent homes, drug-infested neighborhoods, and poverty.
I grew up in a neighborhood that was considered one of the worst in America, and the household I grew up in was one of the worst in that neighborhood. By the time I was 20 years old, I knew at least 30 friends or family members who had lost their lives. Football became like a second parent to me. It taught me the things that my father wasn't there to teach me, and that my mother, as a struggling, single-parent woman, just didn't know to teach me.
But they learn how to live a life of character before pursuing their football careers. Today, you will learn you can do the same that they once did. Making good decisions can lead to a prosperous life both on and off the field. Your game for life has already begun. It's your decision whether or not you want to be a successful student, son, daughter, brother, or sister.
Every one of you can have a Hall of Fame life, whether or not you play football. You can be as great as you want to be. The Hall of Fame is all about integrity, character, and excellence. You have the opportunity to represent yourself that way. You determine your character.
Welcome to a once-in-a-lifetime program, The Heart of a Hall of Famer.
The game is so pure. You take out all the recruiting and all these Little League All-Star games, and you just boil it down to the game itself. And kids at that level play for a different reason. They play for all the right reasons, for the most part. You play for your hometown. For me, it was Leesville, Louisiana. I played for the Black and Gold, the Leesville Wampus Cats. I played for my teammates. Friday Night Lights is what it was all about for me. It's, you know, the last person to leave town on the way down to DeRidder, turn the lights out, you know, that kind of thing. And for a kid that comes from nowhere, football makes things possible. For me, it was a way out of a small town. For a kid like Curtis Martin, it's a way out of dire situations. For a guy like Ed Reed has shared his story, for a way out of a neighborhood that nobody thought he'd be able to get out of. For a kid from an affluent family with an elitist surrounding, it gets him out of that and really sees who he is in the light of who he wants to be and not what others expect out of him. For a kid that has a dream, whether it be football or acting or the arts or whatever, it's an opportunity to be who you want to be in a realm that you want to be in, and to show who you are in a very passionate way for whatever it is. And for me, my art form was playing football. The election into Hall of Fame, it doesn't change your life at all, but it changes everything about your life. And for me, it's not going to change who I am. It's not going to change what I think about the game or what the game has done for me. My legacy as a player was kind of cementing itself on the field, But I want to be remembered for more than just a football player. I want to be remembered as a leader amongst the men.
To another edition of the Pro Football Hall of Fame's Heart of a Hall of Famer series. Today we are live in Nashville, Tennessee, home of the 2019 NFL Draft that will kick off really what begins the NFL season tomorrow, right here in Nashville, Tennessee. My name is Jake Ray. I'm the Youth and Education Manager here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. I'll be moderating our session today. Before we get started, we do have a few thank yous I'd like to pass out. Our first thank you I'd like to send out is to Extreme Networks, our partner on this program. They are a great partner of ours. We thank them for all they do for us at the Hall of Fame, as well as for all that they do for schools across the country. We also like to thank our teachers and administrators today that are allowing students to come here and watch this program live, but also watch this program throughout the country in their classrooms. And lastly, I need to thank our students. You know, without you guys, this program is not going to happen. You're going to have the opportunity today to talk to a Hall of Famer when you woke up this morning. Probably not what you thought would happen today, but you guys are going to get a chance to talk to one of the greatest 326 people to ever be associated with the game of football today. So I'm excited to see where the program goes. I hope you guys are too. Just to give you a little background on what the Hall of Fame is, our mission at the Pro Football Hall of Fame is to honor the heroes of the game, to preserve its history, to promote its values, and to celebrate excellence everywhere. Those values we speak of are those of commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and excellence, all of which we're going to focus on today. So I'm excited, and I hope you guys are too. So without further ado, let's bring in class of 2019 inductee, one of the newest members of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, former Tennessee Titan, Mr. Kevin Mawae.
Morning, guys. And people on the camera.
So not only are we here live in Nashville, Tennessee, at Montgomery Bell Academy, we're also being streamed out to Facebook across the country. So if you're watching on Facebook Live this morning, go ahead and put a comment there in the comment section, and we'll make sure we try and get your question here as part of the program. So we mentioned those 5 values: commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and excellence. Out of those 5, which one do you think is A, most important, or B, kind of helped you the most throughout your career?
I think out of the 5, the 2 that stand out for me most is integrity, and the other one is commitment. The idea of having a commitment is to believing in something so much that you do whatever you need to do to excel or exceed or be successful. You got to be willing to give things up to get things that you want. By that I mean, to be a professional football player, there's things I could not do. Couldn't be carousing, couldn't have partying and all that kind of stuff, because the excellence on the football field is what I wanted. And then integrity is being a man of my word, who I am all the time, and what I do, how I act, how I treat people, how I do my job. And I think, but you can't just pick one. I think all the words are intertwined, that one feeds off the other. But I think integrity and commitment are 2 that really stick out for me.
So like we mentioned there in the intro, we are in Nashville. The NFL Draft starts tomorrow. Looking to do some research on career, you were a 2nd-round pick in the 1994 draft, and I looked into to see where the 7th offensive lineman picked in the draft. Was there a chip on your shoulder being a 2nd-round draft pick now, and maybe the 7th offensive lineman pick, not one of the first guys to go off the board?
No, a lot of guys believe they should be the 1st-round draft pick. For me, I was just happy to be drafted. I knew that I was going to have an opportunity to get drafted high in the draft, just didn't know where. I found out after I retired that I had an opportunity. The Buffalo Bills were going to draft me in the 1st round, and they flunked me on my physical. Somebody told the doctors that I would never make it past 5 years because of my shoulders, and I surpassed every one of them. But some people might be upset that they didn't get drafted higher. For me, just to get drafted is a privilege and an honor. And to get drafted to the Seattle Seahawks, it's where my mom's home state. I got to play in front of my family. It was a true blessing and a true honor.
So if you give a word to somebody that maybe they think they're a 1st-round draft pick that doesn't get their name called tomorrow night in that 1st round, what would that piece of advice you would give to that college player?
I think
right
my
now?
biggest advice I'd give to anybody in that situation or similar situation is it's not where you start the race, it's how you finish it. There's in my draft class 200 something guys that got drafted from the 1st round all the way down. At the time was 7 or 8 rounds, And I surpassed every one of them. I outlasted every guy in my draft class. I was the last guy in my draft class that played an NFL football game. And so it doesn't matter where you start. You can start at the bottom, you can start in the middle, you can even start at the top. But it's how you finish the race and how you run the race. And the NFL, it's like anything else. A career is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And it's what you do throughout the course of that marathon that keeps you in the game. And so that's what I would say is focus on the finish and not on the beginning.
So I when doing this research, I did look that the 7 offensive linemen picked before you only totaled 3 Pro Bowls, or the 6 picked before you only totaled three Pro Bowls. You had 8.
Yeah.
So more than all 6 of them combined. And then 1994 draft for everybody else, the Hall of Famers from that draft: Marshall Faulk, Kevin Mawae, Larry Allen, and Kurt Warner. So some of the best football players ever, and you were obviously the last one to be playing throughout your career. So we're going to turn over here to some of our students. You guys have question cards. If you got a question card, want to ask a question, go ahead and raise your hand. We'll pick you. All right, go ahead and stand up, state your name, what grade you're in, and go ahead and ask your question.
When you played the game, did you ever think you would coach after you retired?
When I played a game, did I ever think I would coach after I retired? The answer is I didn't know. I loved the game as a player. I always had a passion for the game. My first coaching job was at this school at Montgomery Bell Academy. I was offensive line coach for a year. I was associate dean of students. And what I found out about myself then is that I love teaching the game, like not just the X's and O's, but what the game brings, the commitment, the excellence, the pushing yourself to the limit that you didn't think was possible. So to encourage a student athlete at the 7th, 8th grade age, or even the varsity level, that you got what it takes to be a good player, or just to be the best player you're capable of being, it was something that really caught me. And so I knew that I wanted to be involved in the game at some point in time. I just didn't know at what level. And now that I'm a coach, I'm on staff at Arizona State University. I've coached high school football. I spent a year at Vanderbilt University. I love it. I love teaching the game itself, but I love teaching what the game teaches the young men. I think it helps develop young men into men of character.
So not a lot of times do we get to go to a school with one of our Hall of Famers where there's a huge tie-in. And as you mentioned, you came here to Montgomery Bell after your career ended with the Titans. Was there just an itch to stay with the game, or was there some sort of passion you had to come to a high school level and kind of pass on the knowledge that you learned? Well, I think
for me, part of it was when players transition out of the NFL, sometimes they lose themselves because they don't have an identity of who they are outside of the game of football. And when that train stops automatically and there's nothing beyond the track, that's where players in the NFL, I believe, have trouble transitioning into the real world. For me, it was weaning myself off the game. I immediately retired. I coached at Vanderbilt University for 1 season, came to Montgomery Bell, was here for a year and a half. And then, so I'm about 2 years out, and then I took a break. And then that's where in that year break, in 2013, is when I really had a passion to get back in the game and knew that I wanted to be involved on the playing side, meaning coaching and teaching. And so then I took steps to get to where I'm at now as an offensive analyst for Arizona State University. And but it was a natural transition for me, but it was a natural transition out of the game by staying to the game before I came back into it.
All right, another question out here for a student. I'll go ahead right here in the middle, stand up and ask your question.
My name is Rick Jacobs. I'm in 7th grade. Who was someone you looked up to as a child, and how did they get that?
The two people I looked up to the most were my parents. My dad was a sergeant in the U.S. Army, and he was there until I was in sophomore in high school. And my mom, and they're married today. They gave us a good home, and my dad set the example of how things are supposed to be done. If you're going to do it right the first time. If it's worth doing, do it with excellence. And then my mom was the disciplinarian, and she's the one that if you didn't do it right, then she was the one who's going to make you pay for it. And but both of them, they showed me what it means and to love your family, to take care of your kids, and to give them everything you can so that they can be successful. And they're the biggest examples I've ever had in my life. I share the story with my dad. Every morning I watch him put his combat boots on to go to work. And not one time did he ever go to work in the Army with a pair of dirty boots. They were spit shine every week. He never went to his office or to work with a wrinkled uniform. It was double starch, creased down the pants, and he took pride in how he looked and how he carried himself, and that stuck with me. From as a player, as a person, got ready for a football game on Sunday nights, and I was meticulous about how I put my uniform on, and that came back from my dad, watching him prepare as he went to work in the military.
I mentioned your dad being in the military. Was there anything he taught you growing up, either like that he learned from his time serving in the military, or those values he passed on to you?
You know, the values are more about doing things the right way. Everybody has a role to play, and you might not like the role that you're in, but you do it with the best of your ability and with excellence. And like I said, for him, it was, if it's worth doing right the first time. It takes more work to go back and fix something that you didn't do correctly than it does to just do it right the very first time. And then the other part of it for me was be the man you say you're going to be. You know, if you're saying that I'm about this, I'm a man of faith, I'm a man of family, and things like that, then your life has got to show that. You know, when you say something, you stick to it. You honor your words, and you know, and you honor authority. And I think a lot of times that's where people, especially nowadays, young people have problems. They butt heads with authority. And I believe, and I'm a man of faith, and biblically, you know, we're told to honor the authority put above us, and they're there for a reason. And so having that example for my dad, and then learning that as for myself as an adult, is something that I hope to be able to, you know, encourage others to do.
I've got a question coming in here from Facebook. This is from Jeff. He said, what opponent did you battle against that you had the most respect for?
Man, there's so many guys that I had a lot of respect for. Zach Thomas was the middle linebacker for the Miami Dolphins. I played against him 16 times in my career, and he's the only opponent that's on my invitation list to Pro Football Hall of Fame induction ceremony, because I had that much respect for him. One, because he played the game with passion, because he played it the way it was supposed to be played. Two, because he played it and he had fun when he played it. Like, I hated playing against guys or playing with guys that didn't have fun playing the game. Like, it was a grind to them. I wanted to be around guys and compete against guys that enjoyed the game of football. And the third thing was, he was such a student of the game. Like, he's the only guy I've ever played against who can look at our offensive formation, call out the formation, the blocking scheme, the play, tell you where the run's going to go, and be in a position to make the play. And so he would be at the top, one of the most respected players I ever had played against.
I mentioned in August, you know, I think yesterday we were 100 days away from the game. Meaning today we're 100 days away from you getting to put on that gold jacket as part of our gold jacket ceremony. Is that kind of moment you're looking most forward to, or what are you looking forward to during enshrinement?
You know, during enshrinement, having been to the enshrinement once with my teammate Curtis Martin going in, I gotta have a feel for what it's going to be like. I think the thing I'm most looking forward to is being surrounded by teammates, for guys that knew what I went through to get to where I'm at, for guys that went through the same things I did. And there's nothing like going through some trying times or difficulties or hard times, but doing it with your brothers. And this is a message for you guys, especially here at Montgomery Bell Academy, because it's all boys school. Some of the toughest times in your lives are ahead, and some of the guys that you're going to be doing it with are sitting in this room with you. And those are the things when you're older, you're my age, or you're in college, you're going to look back and be like, man, I'm glad Johnny was with me. I'm glad that we were brothers at NBA or whatever school you're at. And for me, as an NFL football player, I look back and there's a handful of guys that I call brothers, that they're like brothers to me, because they've been through the hardest times of my careers with me. And that's what I'm looking forward to the most.
All right, we got another question on here. Go ahead. Go ahead, stand up, ask a question, name, grade, and then ask.
Yeah, I think, you know, people say leaders are born, and I disagree with that term. I believe that leaders are developed, and I think leaders emerge when you see something that's not right and nobody else is willing to stand up for it. And so there's something in you that says that this isn't right, and I'm going to stand up for, whether it's bullying or just there's something systemic that's wrong, that you feel is wrong, that you need to voice it up. And so when you do that, you put yourself out there, and at a great risk many times, to be ridiculed, to be made fun of. But I think that you learn through that, and you become a better leader because of those situations. again, my dad was in the Army. He was a sergeant. He led men. And so I saw that in him. He raised 4 boys and he led our family. And it was just one of those deals. Like, if you're not the lead dog, you're always looking at somebody else's behind. And I never wanted to be that guy. I wanted to be the guy that people follow. And leadership, all leadership is encouraging others to reach their fullest potential and to get other people to follow you in a direction that you think is the right way to go. And there's bad leaders and there's good leaders. But I think being named team captain is a huge responsibility, but it's a sign of respect from your peers, that they trust you, that they believe that what you have in mind is their best interest and not just yours.
While you were here in Tennessee playing for the Titans, you had Mike Munchak, who was already an offensive lineman, a Hall of Famer, as a coach. Did this help you towards the end of your career kind of develop maybe those other leadership techniques or prepare you for potentially getting that call or that knock that you're going to be in the Hall of Fame?
Playing for Mike Munchak, he's a legend in the Houston Oilers franchise, and then he coached for a bunch of years for the Tennessee Titans. Having been in the Hall of Fame, by the time I got to the Tennessee Titans, talk was that I had the potential to be a Hall of Famer. So playing under a Hall of Fame player as my coach, he would give you tidbits and information about what it's like to get in the Hall of Fame. What does it mean? How you're treated differently once you get the gold jacket. And so I kind of knew going in, not the process, but what comes after. And for me, it helped in the coaching aspect too, because he was such a great player, but he was such a phenomenal teacher of the game. And he challenged me and encouraged me to be part of, if you're going to be a coach, he goes, what makes a great coach if you're a great player is you have the ability to communicate what you did in a very concise way. And there's a lot of great players that can never tell you how they did what they did. But those that could tell you and explain to you how they accomplished their goal, their block, their technique, and then exercise that at the highest level, those guys make special coaches. And that's the thing that stuck with me, is that I had the ability to communicate what the things I did that other guys couldn't do, and I could teach guys how to do that. And I knew that coaching was in line for me somewhere down the road. You mentioned the process about being in the Hall of Fame. I was lucky enough to be in Atlanta during the Super Bowl and got to be a part of, the knock. And for those of you that don't know, our president, David Baker, goes around to the hotel where guys like Kevin are staying, where we have all of our finalists, and he goes around and knocks on the door to let them know that they've become a Hall of Famer. So can you talk us through, because you received the phone call that you don't want to get. Yeah. But then you also got to receive the knock this February. So can you just talk through what the feeling like it is to get that no call, but then to finally get that knock? For 2 years, I was a finalist for 2 years, and they tell you to be in your hotel room at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and that you'll know something by 5 o'clock that evening. So you literally sit in a hotel room with your family or whoever's with you, and you wait. And it's the longest wait of your life. And so for the last 2 years, I got a phone call, and that's not what you want to hear. You get a phone call, it's somebody other than the executive director of the Hall of Fame, and they just call, hey, just want to let you know this is not the year. And then they give you statistics about how long it's going to take for you to get in. And you're dejected. You felt like I'm almost there, but it gets pulled out from underneath you. And so the first year I was very disappointed. The second year I just went along with it and be like, it is what it is. There's nothing more I can do as a player to make my case even stronger. And so this third time around, there was a moment where I felt I wasn't going to get in. And I told my wife, so we're not getting in this year. And 2.5 hours later, after sitting there in a room with just her and myself, I took my phone, I was looking at it, I set it down, just kind of leaned forward, and then you get this boom, 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 and that's the knock. And then that's when I realized we got in, and then all the emotions start flooding, and I start crying, and I'm thrilled, and I'm sad, and it was such an incredible moment. And for me, no matter as many games as I played and as many great moments as I had as a player, the greatest moment of my football career is to get that knock on Super Bowl Saturday. I know, and I got to see, because I was across the hall, I could see up when you got to knock it. It's very cool to see in person. And you mentioned, all that emotion, but then you said we. So you didn't feel like, this wasn't just me. This was everybody, all my coaches, all my teammates, all my family that helped me get Yeah,
point.
and I think the lesson that needs to be learned from this is like any amount of success that you find, you're never going to do it on your own. There's always somebody that's along with you. I've been married for 26 years. My wife has seen every football game I've ever played from college all the way through the NFL. She hasn't been to every game, but she's seen every game I played in. My parents have supported me all the way through. There's not a Friday night or a Sunday night where I haven't talked to at least one of my brothers about. One of them's a coach, so I talked to him on Friday night after his game, and I would always talk to both my brothers on Sunday night after my game. And they were always a part of the process and a part of the journey. And of course, the coaches and the countless teammates and the trainers that keep you healthy, the equipment staff that keeps you geared up, and and the medical staff. No success that anybody reaches is always done by themselves. I don't care who it is. There's always been somebody to help them along, whether it be encouragement, financial development, or whatever. There's always another person involved in one person's success. And for me, it was a collection of many, many people.
I got another question here. This is from Chloe, who's a second grader at a school in Canton, Ohio. She asked, how does it feel to be a Hall of Famer?
How does it feel to be a Hall of Famer? I can't describe it. It's indescribable. Take every moment of your young lives that were the best moments of your lives and put them all into one big moment. And that still can't describe the joy and the elation you have for getting in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Every birthday, every Christmas gift as a kid, every new puppy you got, every great thing that ever happened to you in your life, and you put that into one emotion, and that's what it feels like.
From the same classroom. This is from Jadlyn. Why did you want to be a football player?
Why did I want to be a football player? Because I love the game. I went to practice. I was 8 years old to my very first practice. I was living in Germany as a military brat, and I played for the Hanau Panthers. And I went to practice for the very first time, and I loved everything about it. I loved I love the exercise. I love being outdoors. I love being with my teammates. I loved everything about the game. And I knew then at 8 years old that I was never going to do anything else. And I had the fortune of having the DNA with a size. I developed my athletic ability and strength. So there's things I had to do, but there was nothing else I wanted to do. I didn't want to major in medicine or biology. I wanted to be a football player. And everything I did was for that end goal. And I did have a plan B. I got a college degree and that kind of thing, but that's all I want to do because I love the game.
All right, we'll send it back out here to another student. Go ahead, stand up, ask your question, state your name. What grade you're in?
And I'm wondering, what was the biggest obstacle in your career, and how did you learn and grow from it?
Yeah, the biggest obstacle in my career, I would say, one, there's two of them. One, when I felt my contract was up in my first team, and I felt like I deserved a better contract that was being offered me. And I was told that I'm not the level of player that I thought I was. So to have somebody tell you you're not good enough for them, or to have somebody tell you that you're not good enough for their program, that stung a little bit because I believed in myself. I knew who I was. I knew what I was capable of. But to have a general manager tell me that you're not at that level of player that you think you are. And so all that did was just drive me to do even better. And I didn't have to work harder because I was already working hard anyways. But what it taught me to do is always bet on myself. There's always going to be people who tell you you're not good enough, you're not fast enough, you're not slow, you're not smart enough, and whatever it is you do. And I'm here to tell you that don't listen to them. That you just don't listen to them. The negative people are always, there's going to be haters everywhere. And so you just got to ignore them and just keep doing and keep plugging along. And the other thing for me was injury. So I never missed a game. I went 177 straight games before I tore my elbow up and I couldn't play and I had to go on IR. And at the age of 35, to try to overcome a major injury, it was something that I had to dig into myself and say, I can do this. And so to bounce back and become the all-star player after my injury, was all about resilience and just the resolve to get back to the top. And it was countless hours in the training room and the weight room. And I did. I got back to the top. My last game was a Pro Bowl. And that was after 2 elbow surgeries where my triceps were ripped completely off my bone, and I recovered from them. So that's the 2 things: overcoming injury and overcoming naysayers.
So when you were drafted by the Seattle Seahawks, you didn't start at center. You ended up playing right guard for a little bit of time before they moved you to center. We have a question actually coming here from Facebook, all the way from the UK.
Oh, wow.
It says, would you think your career would have been different if you stayed at right guard and didn't move to center?
My career would certainly have been completely different if I played guard my whole career. I wasn't big enough to play guard. It's not my natural position. I was not drafted to play guard. I played guard because I was athletic enough after injuries. There's 2 guys ahead of me, 2 veteran players. One ended up hurting his neck, ended his career. The next guy up ended up hurting his back and ended his career. So I ended up having to play out of position because of the team. And had I had to stay at guard my whole career, I don't think my body would have lasted as long. And I just don't think I would have had the career because it was not my natural position.
All right, well, go ahead and have another question. Go ahead and stand up. Ask your question, name and your grade, and then ask away.
I'm William Perry, and I'm in 7th grade. If you could go back to your rookie year and give yourself a piece of advice, what would it be and why?
Oh. That's a long time ago. That was before you were born. If I can give myself a piece of advice for my rookie year, what would it be? It would be, man. And you know what? I learned in hindsight, and I taught rookies this afterwards, especially in the NFL. The NFL is a business. And it's hard for the normal fan to understand that because they want to see their players and their favorite teams and their fantasy football teams succeed and excel. And so as a player coming into the NFL, you don't really realize how much of a business it is. You thought going in, the dream of playing in the NFL was what you see on Sunday afternoon or Super Bowl Sundays, where the confetti and the trophies and the production that TV makes it look like. But there's a business behind it, contracts and negotiations and ownership versus players. And so if I had to go back and tell myself, or even now tell rookies coming in the league now, it's to learn the business of football, not just how to play the game and the X's and O's and learn your playbook and how to take care of your body, but learn the business of the game. Because the more you know about the business of the game, then as you're playing the game, your game plan changes throughout your career as how to make it a longer career. And if you understand the business of the game, then you have an opportunity to play longer than just playing the game. Does that make sense?
You mentioned to talk a little bit about the business of the game. Now, a lot of people know that you did go into coaching. Obviously, you serve on Coach Edwards' staff now at Arizona State, but you also did a lot of work with the NFLPA and the executive committee, even serving as president after you had retired. What did that mean to you, and what was it like to work and be involved with the NFLPA?
Yeah, for me, being involved in the NFL Players Association goes back to being a leader. To affect change, you got to be a part of the change. You can't just sit there and talk about it and not be a part of it. If you're going to complain about what's going on and not do anything about it, then you're just like everybody else. But if you want to see change, then you got to be an agent of it. And so for me to be elected for my team as a team rep, to go into the meetings and discuss what we need to do to make our game better, it was an opportunity for me to give back to the game that I love so much. And so as a player, I was getting out of it. I was financially, I was being rewarded. The accolades that come along with it, I was being rewarded. The pats on the backs, going out in public, everybody knew who I was. But there's a sense of responsibility, if you really love the game, to be responsible to the game. And part of that is to give back to it. And this is one of the things to give back to the game. The other thing is to be an agent of change to make it better for the players to come after me. And so I was a player rep, I was vice president, and eventually I was the president of the Players Association that helped negotiate the last collective bargaining agreement. And my goal was to leave the game better than I found it. And we've all, and many of you guys have been told, if you borrow someone, bring it back in better condition than when I gave it to you. Or if you're going to stay at somebody's house, make sure it's cleaner when you leave than it was when you got there. And for me, it's the same principle. I want to leave the game better than when I found it. And I did. At least I believe I did. Our players are operating under practice principles that make the game safer because of what we did and I did and led our guys through in negotiations. The game is a cleaner game because of the way it changed under my leadership as a player president. And that was a way to give back to the game because I love the game and respected it so much.
All right, we're going to go out here into the crowd and for another student question. Go ahead, stand up, ask your question.
What was one goal you set for your career and how you work towards achieving that? And also, do you still set any goals today?
Yeah. So the one goal when I got into the NFL, my goal was to play 10 years. And that doesn't sound like a long time, but the average career of an NFL player is only 3 years. And my goal was to play 10, which is 3 times the average. And so I had to figure out what it took to make it to that. And I learned early on that was taking care of my body, getting into a routine where my body is taken care of every week, whether it be chiropractors, massage therapists, going to the training room, and more specifically being in the weight room, spending time in the weight room. Because the stronger I was in the weight room, then the less likely I was to have injury, so less time I had to spend in the training room. And the other part of it was training my body in such a way that when I did play football, that I knew the pitfalls of where injuries happen. You learn to play full speed, 100 miles an hour through the entire play because guys that stand around and don't finish blocks or doesn't finish the play, they're the guys that get hurt, quite honest. And so that was one thing I had to learn. So that was one of my goals. And then once I got to that, for me, life changed in my game because of a life change in my personal life. For me, when I first got in the NFL, it was all about playing football, making money, being rich, and all that kind of stuff. And because of tragedies in my life, my perspective changed. So football became a means to an end for me, but more than that, it became a platform for me to teach other people, to reach out to people, to encourage them to be all that God has called them to be the man that the young men should grow up to be. And that's what football became for me. So whatever happened after that, it happened. But as far as setting goals, I still continue to set goals for myself. My goal right now, I'm an offensive analyst in the college football program. What that means is I can watch film, I can evaluate, I can advise the coaching staff, but I don't get to coach players. By NCAA rules, I'm not allowed to be on the field coaching players. My goal is to be one of the best offensive line coaches that coached in the game. Now, I've got examples, Howard Mudd, Mike Munchak, Bill Muir, guys that coached me. And when their offensive lines play, they're recognized by how they play. Coaches can watch film and say, that's a Mike Munchak offensive line, or that's a Howard Mudd coached offensive line. I want to be one of those guys. 10 years from now, I want people to watch film of a college team or pro team that I'm coaching, not knowing who the coach is, and they play like they're being coached by Coach Mawae. And that's one of my goals. My other goals from a family standpoint is to continue to love my wife and love my 2 children. One was a student here at Montgomery Bell Academy, and my daughter's a freshman at Arizona State University. And to be the example to my daughter that she would want for her husband, and to be the example for my son that he would want to be a man like his dad. But those goals are continuing on going, and you never know if you actually reach those goals. You just keep working towards them.
You mentioned coaching at Arizona State. Herm Edwards, who's the head coach, was your coach when you were with the Jets. Were you more nervous as a coaching partner with Coach Edwards or as a player for Coach Edwards? What are the different? What's the different Coach Edwards like?
Neither. And the reason why I think you get nervous in situations where you're not comfortable with, and many people, I guess, there's studies out said the scariest thing for anybody in their life to do is stand up in front of everybody and speak publicly. Has any of you had to stand up in front of your classmates and give a speech? Yeah. It's nerve-wracking, right? It's like you get butterflies in your stomach and you're nervous and you start talking and you start stuttering and I don't get that way in football because I'm comfortable with football, because I know the game, because I have a relationship with Herm Edwards from a player-coach standpoint, but I respected him as a man, and I love him as a person more than I ever did as a coach. And so I think that we get nervous in situations where we're not comfortable speaking in public or you're giving your first presentation, which is, again, speaking in public, or you're taking on your first job and you're not quite sure, you don't know anybody in the room. But as far as anything that has to do with football, whether I'm on a coaching staff or playing for somebody, it's football, and it's something I'm comfortable with. It's no different than if you're a student and you love biology and you love everything about it and the cellular structure, and you walk into a science classroom and you can tell everything about it. You're not nervous about it because you're comfortable with it. It's the same principle.
So we have another question here from Facebook, and to give a little background before I ask the question, John Madden, who is a Hall of Famer, many of you probably have played the video game before. He said during his enshrinement speech, when all the lights are off and every staff member has left the building, when nobody's there, he 100% believes that all the bronze busts in the Hall of Fame talk to each other. So the question is, when your bronze bust is finally in the Hall of Fame, lights are off, everybody's gone, who do you want to have a conversation with?
Man, that's so hard to think of. And a lot of the people watching this, and you guys in this room, probably wouldn't even know a lot of the names that are out there. But man, I really don't know. So the guys that I respected as a player coming up, they're still alive today, and so I've had an opportunity to speak to some of them. Damani Dawson being one of them. John Randall was who I believe is one of the best defensive linemen to ever play the game, and one of the guys I respected the most as a player. So I get to talk to them already, but I don't know. It's a hard question. I can't answer it because I would want. I don't know. I would have being one of the newest members. Yeah. I think I would want my ghost to be one of the respectful ones that doesn't say much and listens to everybody else talk.
Take it all in.
Take it all in. Now, come ask me that question 5 years in when it's been sitting up there and collecting dust, then I might have a different answer.
All right, so we'll go back out here to our students. We'll go all the way in the back there. Go ahead and stand up and ask your question.
Which would you prefer, a Super Bowl ring or that Kay Bueller's Hall of Fame ring?
See, I have to pick one. I have to pick one of them.
I think, I never played in the Super Bowl. And the closest I ever got was the AFC Championship game when I was with the New York Jets. And it was a devastating loss for us. But there's only 326 men in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. There's thousands of guys that played in the NFL, and there's this is Super Bowl 52 next year or something like that. There's a couple of thousand guys that have played in Pro Bowls. In Super Bowls. I would not give up the Ring of Excellence for the Pro Football Hall of Fame for one Super Bowl. Wouldn't do it. Because there's guys that have one Super Bowl ring and only played 2 years in the NFL and never had a lengthy career. There's guys that got 6 Super Bowl rings and have played 18 years in the NFL. Tom Brady being one of the greatest quarterbacks ever played a game. And he'll be a Hall of Famer. But to be considered the best ever in what you do, whether it's football, baseball, science, technology, it doesn't matter. To be considered one of the very best that ever did what you're doing, you can't put a price on that. And one moment in one game won't change a lifetime of legacy. So for me, the importance weighs more heavily for the Kay Bueller's Ring of Excellence as a Pro Football Hall of Fame member rather than a Super Bowl.
All right, we'll go to another question out here. Go ahead and stand up there and ask your question.
What do you miss the most about playing football?
I think the one thing I miss the most about playing football, and most football players will tell you, is they miss the locker room. They miss the camaraderie in the locker room, the joking around, the brotherhood. They miss the cutting down on each other because it's all fun, and that's what you'll see when former players get together. There's this joy about them because they're back with their boys. They're back in the locker room again. And I don't miss the game. I don't miss playing the game. I miss the puzzle of the game. And when I say that, it's like trying to figure out a defense, make the right calls to match the defense, and it's the chess match back and forth. I miss that part of it. I don't miss playing the game. It hurts. I mean, you play on Sunday, your body feels like garbage. Monday and Tuesday, Wednesday, you're feeling okay. Thursday, you finally feel right. And then Sunday, you're back at it again. I don't miss the pain of the game, but I miss the puzzle of the game. But I miss, more importantly, being in the locker room, just hanging out with guys.
All right, we had another question come through Facebook from our second grade class there in the Canton area. Was there a specific reason or reasoning behind the number 68?
No, it really wasn't. As a freshman in high school, I was on the varsity team, and I was number 60 in junior high school. And when I got to high school, we were taking team pictures, and 60 was taken. So my coach gave me 68, and so I was 68 all through high school. And when I went to LSU, 68 was taken by an upperclassman, and I wasn't going to get the number from him. So they just gave me 52. So my first 4 years in the NFL, I was number 52. My contract was up with the Seattle Seahawks. I went to the New York Jets. The guy that was at the Jets that had number 52 was a 12-year veteran. I wasn't going to get the number from him. And so they actually had number 60 hanging in my locker, and I didn't want it because I had no ties to the number. So I switched the number out with another guy was coming in. Before he got in the locker room, I switched numbers. I took 68, so I go back to my high school number. So that's how I ended up with number 68. And then the other part was there was a member of my family that went through some personal times, and she got rid of everything. And she was, when you throw the trash out, you throw it all out and start all over again. So when I left the Seattle Seahawks and I got to the New York Jets, my time as number 52 with the Seattle Seahawks was over. And that was another reason, because I could have switched back to 52 the next year, and I didn't. I was like, I'd throw it all out. I'm starting I'm coming a new team, new season of my life. It was a new season personally in my life because of things that happened. And so I didn't want anything to do with number 52 anymore. And I became 68. And so that's how I ended up with 68.
Cool tie in there.
Yeah.
Looked up some stats here, doing some research, kind of find some stuff here. So just to kind of give some stats on Kevin's career here. Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2019, you blocked for 13 different 1,000-yard rushers and one 2,000-yard rusher who I just read this morning, Chris Johnson signed a one-day contract with the Titans to retire as a Titan. You were first-team All-Rookie with the Seahawks, New York Jets Ring of Honor, 8-time Pro Bowler, LSU Athletic Hall of Fame in 2007. You were named to a first- and second-team All-SEC while at LSU. So it definitely said you had a decent career. So what do all of these honors here mean to you?
Nothing. It means nothing, really. What all the honors mean is what everybody else thinks about you as a player. And it's great. The honors are what get you into the Hall of Fame. It's what gets you recognized as a football player. But at the end of the day, when I'm dead and I'm buried and I'm gone and on my tombstone, all it's going to say is father, husband, man of God. And that's all that matters. All those things are things that men put on you, titles that they give you, but they don't define who you are, right? I'm Kevin Mawae, who is a Hall of Fame player who played in the NFL. I'm not Kevin Mawae, the football player. And I think so many times we get pigeonholed into saying we are what we do. And I'm here to tell you that that's not who you are. You are a student. You are a son. You are a child of somebody. I am the son of David and Linda Mawae. I am the father of Kirkland and Abigail Mawae. I'm the husband of Tracy Mawae. That's who I am. I'm a man of faith. I'm a man of character. I'm a man that loves people. I'm a man who represents people of Hawaii, being of Hawaiian descent. I am just a dude who played football, who had a great time doing it and got paid really well to do it. All the other stuff, it comes along when you do things with excellence and you do things right and you work to a goal and you commit yourself into a cause, then those things come along with it. But it's not what defines you. What defines you is how you got those things. And so the answer is those things mean nothing. If my kids don't love me and my wife doesn't love me and my teammates don't respect me and the people in the community don't respect me, then all the other stuff doesn't matter. Because what matters is who you are when you stand in a room by yourself and all you have is yourself and looking yourself in the mirror. And if you can't look in that mirror and say, I like who that guy is, then all the other stuff means absolutely nothing.
All right, that's kind of the answer that we want to convey there is, we have Hall of Famers who have honors on honors on honors and are named to this team and this team, but when it boils down to, we were talking before, you're just a great football player. And that got you that gold jacket, that K Jewelers ring of excellence. But like you said, off the field is where the success really, really matters the most.
Who you are off the field, in the community, around your friends, around your teammates, around your parents, that's who you really are. Like, nobody – at the end of the day, my friends don't care if I'm an all-pro. They want to know that I'm a trustworthy friend. My wife doesn't care how many Pro Bowls I've been to. She wants to know if I can change the baby's diaper and go get milk on the way home, right? And that's to all you guys, whether you're in this room or you're watching online. Who you are is how you carry yourself. It's what people think about you when they see you, when you treat people right. I come back on this campus and I see smiles and I get hugs and we're so glad to see you. And I'm saying the same thing to them. And it has nothing to do with football. It has everything to do with how you treat people and how you live your life. And that you can't put a price tag on that. You can't give me any colored jacket that makes that more important, makes that less important. And so for me, it's the yellow jackets, the gold jacket's great. The ring's gonna be awesome. My bust in the Hall of Fame, it's gonna last 40,000 years, it's gonna be great. But when somebody comes to the Hall of Fame that knows me and sees my bust, they can say, he was a great player, man. He was a great friend. That's more important than anything.
All right, we got time for a few more questions, so we'll go back to our students for one. Go ahead right there. Stand up and ask your question.
John Randall. As I talked about, John Randall was a defensive lineman for the Minnesota Vikings. He's a Gold Jacket member, Hall of Fame brother. And I've told him in his face, you're the best defensive lineman I've ever played against. And the reason being is because everything he did was 100 miles an hour. There was no let up in him, and he ran his mouth 100 miles an hour too. So imagine, he just talked all the time, and you get tired of that. But then he never slowed down on the football field. You had to bring your A game every play with him, and there's no other opponent that we played against where our schemes were based specifically off where he was on the field. So wherever John Randall was, that's where the blocking scheme went to John Randall. And I played against some great players, some guys that were fierce competitors. But John Randall, to me, was the best defensive lineman I've ever played against.
All right, we'll go to another question out here. Go ahead and stand up and state your name, your grade, and ask your question.
My name is Walter Russell. I'm in 7th grade. And my question is, if playing with professional football did not work out, did you have a backup player?
Nope. I tell everybody no, I didn't. There was no plan B, and that's such a lie. In order to play football, I had to make good grades. You have to be eligible to play. And I didn't want to do anything else. I did a speech in the 9th grade about wanting to be a psychologist because I had no clue what I wanted to do. And there was no chance I wanted to be a psychologist. But you try to give a speech on wanting to be a professional football player, and more often than not, you're like, that's good. But no, really, what do you want to do? And for me, it was like, I really want to play football. And so I went to LSU with no plan, and I graduated with no plan. But the reality of it was I knew I was going to be involved in football some way or another. Had the NFL not worked out, my two choices that I already talked through were to go into the military. Because I graduated, I could have went into the Army as an officer and live out that military career, or go back to college as a graduate assistant and become a coach. So I knew early on that football was something I wanted to do. So those were my two choices. And fortunately for me, NFL worked out. I didn't have to go in the military and didn't have to become a graduate assistant either. But I did. I went back to college, and I went to graduate school while I was playing in the NFL. I got my master's degree in sports management, which I thought maybe one day I would want to be an athletic director at a small school somewhere.
If you could pick one memory from your career that stands out above the rest, was there a moment on the field, off the field that you consider your favorite?
Prior to getting knocked on the door?
Yeah, we'll say prior to
not the knock on the door.
Not the knock.
I think there's two memories for me that stand out more than anything. Was February 11th, 1989. I signed my scholarship to play at LSU. It was signing day, and it was a dream. It was part of the dream. It wasn't the dream, but it was part of the dream and next process in it. So I remember vividly the day I signed with LSU. The day I got drafted to the Seattle Seahawks was a realized dream, a dream to come true. And I got to play in the NFL. And so those are two moments that in my mind are so etched in my memory that they won't go away. My first game I ever stepped foot in an NFL stadium was the first game I ever played in. So I'd never been to a pro game until I played in one. And I was playing in Candlestick Park in San Francisco, and I was warming up, and I looked across the field, and all I could see is, man, that's Steve Young. And some of you guys are too young to know who Steve Young is, but he's a Hall of Famer, and he was throwing the ball to Jerry Rice. Some of you guys don't know who Jerry Rice is. They're in the Legends section in the Madden game, by the way. And I could just sit there, I just stand there, I was like, oh my gosh. My coach was like, Kevin, you need to get warmed up. I was like, I ain't warming up. Man, that's Steve Young. That's Steve Young and Jerry Rice, and they're playing catch in front of me. And I just sat there and watched them during warm-ups. And I was like, wow, this is amazing.
That welcome to the NFL.
It was so cool. And even throughout my rookie year, there was moments like that because now I'm playing against guys that I only saw on TV and highlight films. John Elway, I stood on the sideline the whole game when we played the Denver Broncos when John Elway was on the field. I just want to see John Elway play football, and I got to do it in real life. And so those are moments like that. And there's other games. I played in a Monday night game. It's called the Monday Night Miracle. It's the largest come from behind victory on a Monday night ever. We scored, I think we were down by 30 points in the fourth quarter, and we came back in overtime and won the game. It was a big moment for us. Here with the Tennessee Titans, we played the Cardinals. We were down. We got the ball on the -1 yard line. We drove 99 yards with no time on the clock and scored a touchdown, and we won the game. And it wasn't a championship game, but it was such a great moment in the series and how it played out at the end of that game. But those are just moments that really just come to mind.
All right, so to wrap up today, thanks for everybody who asked questions. Thanks for our students here who asked questions. What is one piece of advice you want to leave the students here watching, the people we have watched online, students or adults? What is one piece of advice you want everybody to leave with?
Well,
today?
I think really it's kind of a two-part deal, but the biggest piece of advice I can always tell that I want to leave with you guys here and are watching is believe in yourself. There's enough people in this world and enough haters around that are going to say you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not big enough, you're not fast enough, you don't come from the right background, or you're not designed that way. There's enough people to say you're not good enough that you don't have to tell yourself that. Just believe in yourself, I think, more than anything. And the other part of it is if it's worth doing, do it right, do it 100%, and give every effort you got. The things that the Hall of Fame stands for: commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and excellence. If you do things with integrity, if you do things with a commitment, and you do things responsibly, if you do those things define who you are as men and women of character. And you don't have to have all-stars or trophies to know who you are as a person. If you do things the right way, you can stand in front of the mirror and look at yourself and be like, I'm happy with who I am. And so those are the two things I would have to say.
All right, and with that, we'll wrap up this latest installment of our Pro Football Hall of Fame, Heart of a Hall of Famer series powered by Extreme Networks. First, we want to thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedule. You know that the football season's off and running already to come here to Nashville to be a part of this great program. From myself, Nathan, our education department, all the way up to David, we thank you for all you've done for the game. I like to say, the game of football wouldn't be like it is today without our Hall of Famers influence. So thank you for all you've done for the game. Thank you for all you've done for the Hall of Fame. And we're definitely looking forward to having you in Northeast Ohio in August. to finally celebrate the enshrinement into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So, ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause for coming on. All right, we thank you, everybody. Thank you guys for coming in and taking time out of your class today. Thanks for everybody who watched online, and we will hopefully see you in Canton, Ohio one day. Thank you, everybody.
Is it off?